welcome to the weekly review, a program of Sawasawa Network. I'm Roger Alfred, Yoron, the producer and host of the weekly review. Joining me via Zoom from Juba is Honorable Beny Gideon Mabor, a commissioner at the South Sudan Human Rights Commission, a body established under the Transitional Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan. The Constitution provides the Commission with a number of functions, including to monitor the application and enforcement of the rights and freedoms enshrined in the Constitution, and also to investigate on its own initiative or on a complaint made by any person or group of persons against any violation of human rights and fundamental freedoms, plus many other functions. Welcome to the weekly review, Honorable Beny Gideon Mabor, Commissioner at the South Sudan Human Rights Commission.
Thank you, Roger Alfred, Yoron, for having me in the studio.
As we look further to discuss the state of human rights in South Sudan and related issues, it is important to underscore where we came from as South Sudanese, and that in 2011, South Sudan's independence constitution, the transitional constitution of the Republic of South Sudan, enshrined that South Sudan is founded on justice, equality, respect for human dignity, and advancement of human rights and fundamental freedoms. As a commissioner, and we also, together with several other members of the public, know that there have been several damaging reports about the state of human rights in the country, most especially since December 2013 and the years that followed, including most recently. What do you say about the state of human rights in the country?
Yes, thank you very much once again, Roger Alfred, Yoron, for hosting me in the South Sudan Network to discuss the situation of human rights in the country. Indeed, as you have mentioned, that is the brief constitutional mandate of the Commission, where its operational and functional mandates are clearly spelled out under Article 145 and 146 of the Transitional Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan 2011 as a mandate, read together with the enabling law, which is the South Sudan Human Rights Commission Act 2009, respectively. Both the Constitution and the enabling law gave us the mandate, among others, to include monitoring and documentation of the human rights situation in the country, to provide advisory opinion to government at all levels on issues of human rights and fundamental freedom, and to also help advise the government to keep its constitutional obligation and treaty obligation with regard to regional and international human rights instruments that South Sudan have ratified or acceded thereto. And above all, the mandate of visiting the detention facilities on our own motion, or conduct investigation upon receipt of the complaint submitted to the Commission. This broad mandate of the Commission, we have been discharging it, and the states of human rights in the country is that South Sudan is now emerging out of a political violence to a current state of revitalized transitional government of national unity. So the fact remains that during the war, there were a lot of human rights violations that were committed from both sides of the divide. And these human rights violations are of two categories. There are rights violated as a result of political violence that has occurred, political violence perpetrated by armed opposition movement with political objective. And there were also rights violated as a result of criminal violence due to intercommunal conflicts, especially among the conflicting communities in the country, in all the three regions. There is a contest over the land, with the grazing point, with the water resource for those who kept the cattle, and those that have dispute over the ownership of some pieces of land. So these two active violence, political violence and criminal violence, has produced numerous human rights violations. And the Commission, together with regional and international agencies, have well-founded documentation of such violation. And this shall constitute our annual human rights report. However, the report is now ready, but our mandate says that we submit the human rights report to the national legislature, to the president. And so the national legislature is yet to be established, thereafter which we shall now submit our report to Parliament. But generally, the state of human rights in the country was not that good. But at the interim, especially in the aftermath of the formation of the government, there's a relative peace in a major part of the country, and we hope that we should maintain this status in due course.
Well, well, thank you. With regards to investigations, for example, on your own initiative, as one of the functions stipulated in the constitution, have you been able to do some of those investigations, to go to the prisons and see, jails and related facilities, to assess and inspect, the condition of inmates and make recommendations on the same, apart from all the war crimes and other things that have been committed?
Yes, absolutely correct. We do visit the detention facilities and we talk to the inmates, we talk to the prison administration, be it the police, be it the National Prison, Maximum Prison Facility, or be it the National Security Service, known as the Blue House. So we have access to facilities, and in the past we have been putting to the president, to the parliament, and to the Ministry of Justice, because particularly on issues of instituting criminal prosecution, then it is the role and responsibility of the Ministry of Justice to initiate prosecution on behalf of the state. Our mandate in visiting detainees in all the detention facilities is to ensure that due process of law are followed in accordance with the provision of the Constitution and the law.
Well, regarding the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Justice is a political position. Being a minister is political, and those are some of the loopholes we have in our laws. But you also have the mandate to recommend to the national legislature, how to improve human rights in the country. Are those not some of the issues you may consider, or you have so far considered in your reports, separating those political positions from some of the duties that are required under the law?
Yeah, thank you very much. It is sad to say that the Ministry of Justice is both the political position, and at the same time, the Ministry of Justice is the Attorney General of the government. So obviously, a fear of contradiction, I see the element of conflict of interest, because the Minister of Justice is the Attorney General of the government. At the same time, we have the Prosecutor General, who is one of the directors in the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Normally, in common law legal system, it is either the Attorney General Chamber is separated from the Ministry of Justice, or the Public Prosecution Authority is separated from the Ministry of Justice. And our immediate neighbors in the region have done that so far. Kenya, Uganda, we have a separate Public Prosecution Chamber or authority, and the case will be, including Rwanda. And this is where you can see full doctrine of independence of institution. You didn't blame the Minister of Justice being a politician and at the same time the Attorney General of the government. That's why it is important that these two institutions need to be separated. And the Commission has no prosecutorial mandate, neither will have judicial powers, like the case of Uganda. The Ugandan Human Rights Commission has the judicial powers. It conducts investigation on motion or upon receipt of the complaint and render judgment whose decisions are appealable for the Court of Appeal. The Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights has prosecutorial powers where it can directly prosecute alleged violation of human rights and other fundamental freedom for the competent court of law. The South Sudan Human Rights Commission is only limited to collecting information, monitoring the human rights violation, and submit the report to the legislature, the president, the Ministry of Justice, so that those learning institutions pick up of what we recommend. So you can see that we don't have the mandate, we have the power to do what we can. So the Minister of Justice, the chief legal advisor of the government, is at liberty to instruct the Prosecutor General whether this case can go ahead or not. And this is where you can easily see the conflict of interest. So generally, it is important to institute public prosecution on behalf of the state without any political interference.
Well, as you said, we are still waiting for the Transitional National Legislative Assembly, the revitalized Transitional National Legislature to be reconstituted before you could table your report before them. What about the past years? Have you been reaching out to the National Legislature with reports on human rights and some of your activities?
Absolutely correct. We have been in the past, we have submitted 6 annual human rights reports every year. There is no single year that has passed without delivering the annual human rights report. In fact, our last 2018-2019 human rights report volume in terms of its content, in terms of its substantive outreach that we have done. And up to now, we are waiting for the implementation of the recommendation that contain in those reports. At the same time, we have situations that occur as a result of human rights violation in a situational occurrence report to the president. And report that we submit to the legislature, we have a situation report that we regularly submit to the relevant line institution for a particular matter in question that has arisen. So we have been submitting the report. It's a public document and is available outside there.
Could you just take us through a few recommendations, major ones that you made so far in, telling the Legislative Assembly what they could do or effective measures to promote human rights and fundamental freedoms, which is actually one of your functions to tell the National Legislative Assembly. What have you been telling them in brief to make sure that there's effective measures, in promoting human rights and fundamental freedoms?
Obviously, what is required, leave alone what we presented in the report, but generally what is required for a country to respect, promote human rights and fundamental freedoms. One, that we ensure doctrine of separation of powers between the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. This means that powers need to be exercised horizontally instead of vertical function of institution. So this includes having an independent public prosecution authority. This includes having an independent chamber. This includes having an independent anti-corruption unit, and this includes having an independent national audit chamber. So generally, institutional reform, security sector reform will help shape the direction of which South Sudan is founded on justice, equality, and advancement of human rights and fundamental freedom. And these are the principles laid down in our constitution and the law. Equally important is to ensure a very clear cut role and responsibility of the police, the army, the national security service. These 3 professional services in our country have their respective. We know what the role of in the SPLA Act 2009. We know what is the role of the national security as far as the constitution is concerned. Because if you could see the function of the national security service in the national security Act 2009, some are altered, some are the constitutional framework, such as issue of arrest with a warrant, such as issues to do with search, such as issues to do with confiscation of properties. The National Security Service, in many jurisdictions, has without warrant because you cannot wait. You cannot wait if a person commits an offense and then that person must undergo the arrest warrant process. We are saying the National Security Service, as far as maintaining our national security and economic interests of the state, they can equally arrest without warrant. But any arrest with a warrant should be a sole responsibility of the Public Prosecution Authority, the police, and the judiciary. And this is what we are saying. We are saying that the National Security Service should be limited to its information gathering, analysis, and recommend appropriate action to the relevant authorities. This is what we are saying, because it is the role of the police to maintain law and order inside the country, to ensure that your process of law are carried out throughout the process. So the justice, the Minister of Justice, the police, the Human Rights Commission, our job in the judiciary, our job is to ensure that laws are followed in accordance with procedures set forth in the Constitution and the law, that people are subjected to all due process of law, from arrest to retrial, trial, and post-trial stages. This is how best we can say. We are also saying that the state apparatus, security apparatus, must avoid random arrests, intimidation, threat, but follow the requirement of the law. If a citizen commits an offense which is prohibited or punishable by law, then it should be dealt with in accordance with the applicable law. But random detention and remain on free trial or prolonged detention without due process constitute violations of human rights and mental freedom. This is generally what I can say.
So you're basically saying you agree that the National Security Service be limited to information gathering and analysis and advice to relevant authorities as the Constitution actually envisioned.
Absolutely, yes.
And you see, one of the functions also of the Human Rights Commission is to educate and encourage the public to defend their human rights and fundamental freedoms against all forms of abuse and violation. That has been clearly stated in the Constitution. So, as the Commission, have you been doing some education to the people, to the public, to defend their human rights? If so, so far, what has been the feedback? Are people understanding even their human rights in the country, or it has not been easy to educate them even on their own human rights?
Well, it's true that one of the mandates of the Commission is to conduct civic education for the citizens to know their rights and their duties. Not only right, but equally knowing their responsibilities as a responsible citizen. The Commission has been doing this quite a number of times before the war, because before the war in 2015, the Commission has it present in all the 10 states and a Bay administrative area, and had a number of civic education programs, both in forms of town hall meetings, radio talk shows, TV talk show, and issuing policy briefs and media advisories with regard to explaining rights and duties of citizens in the country. Unfortunately, in 2015, when the armed conflict broke out, the president of the Human Rights Commission, Yoron Juba, was limited to some extent, and we restructured the commission more or less. And now the revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in South Sudan has established each state to have Human Rights Commission. And this is the good news, that we are now going to have our structure throughout the country, and we shall resume our regular intensive human rights education program. At the interim, even with our limited presence in the country and only having headquarters, our office in Juba, the Commission is continuously doing such education to raise awareness about the Bill of Rights, which is a whole chapter dedicated in our Constitution. And we call upon the people of South Sudan, wherever they are, that get in touch with the legal framework, with our Constitution of the land, which has beautiful Bill of Rights, read, understand, and own them, so that you can be able to responsibly demand your right so that you can be able to responsibly take up your rights. Because there are certain rights in the Bill of Rights that you can demand to be provided, but equally important, there are certain rights and duties that you are required by the Constitution and the law. Take them up and implement them accordingly. This is what I can say with regard to that issue.
Well, apparently, probably you came through, recent reports like the one from the Human Rights Watch on the situation of human rights in the country, and the accusations, the reports, talked about the national security abusing their powers, and all those allegations, and with people they documented, and is the Human Rights Commission having any response or a view on not only the report from Human Rights Watch, but several other reports that have been coming, and they have been very, damaging, and I mean, does the Human Rights Commission has a view on those reports, because the records have not been okay?
Yes, let me say that yes, when the Human Rights Watch launched its report titled "What Crime Am I Paying For?" I was in discussion. I was a panelist, and I have seen the summary of the report, which is specifically dedicated to alleged human rights violation committed to the National Security Service. And what I want to say with regard to that report is that unfortunately the report contains some element of exaggeration of things that have not happened, of things that have not been verified, and also the report is supposed that the National Security Service is doing. For example, the National Security Service now have established a tribunal, and this tribunal has so far convicted some number of officials and NCOs and men ranging between 5, 6 to 7 years and dismissed from professional service. This shows that there is a relative political will to ensure accountability and end impunity for those officers and NCOs who took up law into their own hand. Of course, with considering our situation in the country, we have service, be it Army, National Security Service, or the police, some rough official would even violate human rights on behalf of the state, even if they are not authorized. And these are the people who have now been convicted, both in the SPLA and the tribunal, national security we will establish or present. And I think we also need to appreciate that. The fact that the Human Rights Watch have released its report is a good gesture of their work, but nevertheless, verification of the information we cannot respond to the report published by Human Rights Watch or report released by the international organization for that matter. It's not our mandate. It's the mandate of the government of South Sudan, the executive wing of the government, because the government has the minister responsible for information and communication, and who is the official spokesperson of the government. So it's the responsibility of the executive to respond to an allegation raised against the government. So it's not our mandate. It's outside our mandate. What we normally do is that we read the report, see areas of intervention that could be of our interest to pick up further investigation. But the response is a responsibility of the executive. It's not our mandate.
Well, have you then identified areas of the report that may need your further investigations, or the commission is still reading the report more deeply?
See, the commission is still reading the report so far, And if we later on fix an area of interest to further dig out our investigation, we will obviously make our report known as usual. But for now, we have not yet fixed any area of interest in the report, because
Well,
it's not the only report. There are several reports that have come out from the Human Rights Watch, from the Amnesty International, from the UNIMIS Human Rights Division, and from the Commission on Human Rights in South Sudan, which is established by the Human Rights Council. So there are numerous reports released by uh, regional and international human rights organizations.
then your final message to the people of South Sudan, and also the government and those who are concerned, in this effort to ensure respect for human rights in the Republic of South Sudan.
What I would like to tell the people of South Sudan is that stand up for human rights. All of you are human rights defenders. A human rights defender is somebody who defends his or her rights or stand up for the right of others. So the Bill of Rights in our constitution is the covenant between and among the people of South Sudan and their government, whether this government is an elected government or a government that came into force by a political agreement like the revitalized transitional government of national unity. The Bill of Rights remain a covenant between the people of South Sudan and their government of the day, and we must all uphold ourselves to the principle of social contract laid down in the Constitution and the law. So there is a need for promotion, for protection, and observance of human rights and fundamental freedom in a manner specifically spelled out by the Constitution and in line with South Sudan treaty obligation to regional and international human rights treaties and conventions which South Sudan has ratified or acceded thereto.
Well, Beny Gideon Mabor, a commissioner at the South Sudan Human Rights Commission, thank you very much for being on the weekly review.